marching at the nature reserve. That was a beaver pond, Nate, tons of beetles, about like 100.
What was the snake doing?
Moving very slowly, like this fast. I'm going to tell about dolphins and the two dreams. So once
Turn the water off, please.
once dolphins had a dream, and it was about this. So the first dream was about some cows. That was fat cows and tinny cows. The tinny cows ate up the fat cows. So that was the first dream. The second dream was the same but hot with tone. So the fat tone, that was fat tone and tinny tone. The tinny tone ate up the fat tone.
Do you remember what it meant?
I'm going to tell about how the leopard got his pots. So it was the leopard is in a desert, and he was doing his supper. So he set off to hunt, and he saw the giraffe and the bull, and he wanted to eat them for his supper. And eventually they did get away into the forest, and
Stop moving the chairs, it's kind of noisy.
and so they go into a forest, and then they hide themselves with doing like pots and types by doing in height like that, and then they can go, if they say 1, 2, 3, they turn invisible.
And then how does the leopard get his spots?
He does the same thing, but with like giraffe, but smaller pots. I'm tell about William Tell. So somebody's like a really good animal. So somebody he challenged him. It says him to shoot an apple on his boy's head, and he has an extra bullet for if he hits the boy hard for the other person who challenged him. And the boy didn't move because he was furious. I'm going to tell about Moses the chicken. So somebody was lying to somebody else's farm, and then they see a chicken almost frozen. So he takes it to the farm, so it can warm up. When he got out, how the one of the farmer was outside.
And then what happened with that little black kitten?
It's taken inside. Does it get taken inside?
They warm it up.
They warm it up. I'm going to tell you the story of digging from the Bible. So have a wall. And then God says something about who gets to go home. If somebody didn't stow away like cats and dogs, can go back home. The people who didn't eat normally don't get to go back home.
And then how does the battle go?
Pretty well.
Do you remember anything about the battle?
I'm going to tell about how to count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 76, 75,
75?
85, 90, 95, 100.
That's a good spot to stop. 100. How many to get up to 10 if you had 6 of something?
Four.
Yeah, 4. How many to get up to 10 if you had 5 of something?
5.
How many to get up to 10 if you only had 1 of something?
That would be 9.
Good job.
I'm going to tell about Guy Fawkes and how he tried to kill the king while he was in Parliament. So there was a group of people who didn't like the king, and they know that the king is going to Parliament. And Guy Fawkes was chosen to blow up some gunpowder under them. But they get caught, and now they have a celebration on that day because the king didn't get killed.
Yep, and that's called Guy Fawkes Day. Do you remember what they do for that holiday?
Make big fires and stuff.
Go.
I'm going to tell about the building of the tabernacle. So, the Lord says to Moses to tell the people to bring this stone and this wood and this jewels and this gold, and so they bring it, and then God says to make these people head of building the tabernacle because they're good at working with those stuff. And then they finally had to stop the donations because everybody was giving too much. They had enough, and then I'm going to tell about Children of the New Forest. And one of my favorite parts, when Edward thinks Humphrey can't catch a wild pony, but then he does by putting hay out, and then they kind of get used to eating hay there, and then they put it there, and then chase them into a snowdrift, and then they can catch some and the rest get out. I'm going to tell about Feeble Feebleson. This is a tall tale, but in the tall tale, he was one of the first like a settler on the prairie. But then gold was discovered in California, and he got lonely because everybody was going to California. And so once a family was going by, and he decided to buy 1,000 goldfish and put them in a pond nearby his house. And then they thought there was gold in the pond, and they panned all day and didn't find anything. But then he's like, and they're like, there's no rain here, no gold, and it's like, it can make rain. So he made a big fire by the pond, which made things evaporate, and which made clouds that rained. But it was so hot, the rain, he never touched the ground. So they tried noise by making frogs croak, but frogs don't croak without rain, kinda, or when they're wet. But he hypnotized them by saying, rain, rain, rain. And then they got some rain, so they decide to stay, but they can't put things in the ground. So he tells them a technique, but the technique does take a kind of 8 years. And then they stay. I'm going to tell about the burning of London. So it started out in a baker's shop. Some people think it was started on purpose, and it spread from there to like house to house. And it happened about how it was about at the end of the bubonic plague, the like most famous part of it. They've had it, but they had it for about 1,000 years or 400, I think. But they've had it for a long time, and they finally stopped it.
The fire?
By well, they tried to stop it by destroying houses in between the flaming houses and the good houses, but that didn't work, so they tried gunpowder, which worked. I'm going to tell about otters. So they are hard to trap because if one gets trapped there, they kind of smell it, and then they won't go there and walk around the trap. And even if they do step in a pretty strong trap, they can get out, barely getting hurt. And sometimes them and beaver fight because otters sometimes eat in the beaver's hallway and just leave the stinky fish bones, and beavers are kind of clean. And they also mix, but a lot of people still want to trap on them because said in the book that their skin would sell for $14, but back then $14 was more 50 or 60 or $70. So they have really sleek fur. And when they swim,
tell about Joseph, Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's dreams. Pharaoh had a weird dream that no one could interpret, and then Pharaoh's wine taster remembered about Joseph, who had interpreted one of his dreams once. So he told Pharaoh, and Pharaoh summoned Joseph and told him his dream. And the dream was that there were 7 fat cows, and then 7 skinny cows came and ate up the fat cows. And also, in a different part of his dream, there was 7 stalks of grain, fat grain, and then some not so fat grain came and ate the fat grain, or the healthy grain. And Joseph interpreted this as 7 years of good harvest and then 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh then gave Joseph a good position and set him over a lot. I am going to tell about what ancient people thought were the elements. There were 4 of them: fire, air, earth, and water. And they thought that everything was made out of different combinations of these 4 things. We're going to tell about the first chapter of the Hobbit and how Bilbo met up with the dwarves. So Bilbo was having a normal day when he met someone who it turned out to be Gandalf. And then the next evening, he kept getting unexpected dwarf visitors for a while, until there were a bunch of dwarfs in his house who were all hungry and talking about treasure. So then they left on a big journey, and if you want to know about the big journey, you'll have to read the book for yourself. Had some close calls, and I'm going to tell about one of them. So he was fighting in South Africa, and he got captured, and he escaped the prison camp and knocked on the door of a house that he traveled to. And the house happened to be the only house in long ways that would have helped him keep going on his escape mission. It's the right distance from the sun. It has water in large enough amounts and in liquid form. It has an atmosphere with the right amount, and it has enough oxygen in the air, and it has the right amount of, it's got the right temperature. I'm going to tell what I know about John F. Kennedy. He was very popular. He and his wife were very popular, and he was assassinated while running for his 2nd term, and he was shot, and his wife wore the sweater or vest with the blood on it for a while after he was shot, and the vice president became president while he was while he was flying on a plane, and that's about it. I'm going to tell some about King Lear, the Shakespeare play. So King Lear is getting old, and he decides to divide his kingdom between his 3 daughters, and he asks the daughters how much they love him, and 2 of the daughters say kind of flattering stuff about him, and the other daughter just tells more plain, simple, truthful stuff, and the king was kind of disappointed in her for that, because it didn't seem like she loved him as much to him, but that's just because the others were kind of talking big. So he gave the kingdom in halves to two of his daughters, and the play is mainly about what things happen because of that. And some other characters are Kent, who is banished but comes back disguised and does some stuff. There is Gloucester and his two sons, who are doing some complicated stuff. And then there's also the fool, who doesn't like how the king gave away his kingdom to his daughters. And Norway, Britain, Ireland, France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, Poland, Denmark, Lithuania, Greece, Turkey, Russia.
Go.
I'm going to tell about the city of Petra. It's an ancient city, and it was along an important trade route, so a lot of people passed by, and it was only accessible by a narrow canyon, extremely narrow, and it was very easy to defend, and it had massive tombs carved straight out of the cliff face, and it has some cool old buildings and a complicated water system that collected water when there was water around, like from raining.